This is actually a tree aloe, and it looks similar to aloe vera, but it's actually aloe Hercules, and it actually grows into a tree aloe. This will grow about 15 to 20 feet tall and have a span of about 6 feet. These are mixed plantings that are kind of similar to the plantings we do with the murals, but these are more of a dish garden look for people to put on their tables out on the patio. That's more of the Echeveria elegans. But we grow about 500 or 600 varieties of succulents, and succulents come from all over the world. They're basically plants that have adapted to environments in which water was withheld for long periods of time, and they formed thicker leaves and thicker trunks and the ability to both store water and collect water quite efficiently. There's a plant over here that people are fascinated by.
This is great.
Oh, you want to
Yeah,
distracted by the living picture. This is a planter box that I designed in the early 80s. This is the one I described earlier, where you have the box, the wood frame, and I'll show you one a little later without the plants. But it actually has a wire mesh toward the front of the planter box, and then soil behind about 2 inches deep. And when we fill this with soil through the mesh, we lie it flat and we lay our cuttings throughout the surface. And then we grow the cuttings so that the roots go behind the wire mesh. And once it's all filled in with roots and the plants cover the whole surface, you can put it up sideways and you have yourself a vertical garden. I called this a living picture. What I'm going to show you here is how we plant our vertical gardens. And this is the frame that we use. This frame has, this is old growth redwood that was recycled from a building that was taken down. And then this is a galvanized wire mesh that's 1/2 inch hardware mesh. And then on the back we have a material called cement board. And so this is designed to plant as a little planter box that can be hung up on a wall. And what we're going to do is show you how we plant this by starting with filling it with soil. And what I do is I take this and lay the planter horizontal, and I take my special succulent potting mix, which if you're doing your own and you're going to plant it yourself, you can use a cactus mix. And you just kind of, you screen the soil through the wire mesh. And as you do this, you're trying to get it full so that there aren't any little air pockets. You see right here how there's an air pocket. We still need to keep putting soil in. And what you're going to end up with is a frame that is completely full. And we just keep screening the soil in so that it's completely full. There, I think I've got a pretty good full frame. And then what we do is we've taken the cuttings off of plants around the nursery, and we've taken an assortment of cuttings so that we have maybe about 150 cuttings to plant this particular frame. This is a 12 by 12 inch frame. So when we plant, we actually take a cutting and we take the old leaves off. With succulents, they store their own moisture. So rather than putting them in water or spraying them to keep the leaves hydrated like other plant material, we don't have to do that. But when we cut the stem right here, we need to let that stem form a scab before we plant it. And that usually takes anywhere from a day to a week. And so when we cut this stem, we lay the plant on a surface like this so that it's in shade, and it just allows that scab to dry. Kind of like when you get a cut on your arm or your finger You want to let that get a good scab so that you won't get any diseases coming into that open wound. Once that scab is formed, you can prepare the cutting for planting. This cutting has about a 1/4 inch stem. It doesn't really have to have that long a stem, but because we have this wire mesh, we can place that cutting into the wire mesh, and then we just kind of work with our plants, cleaning the old leaves off. And then we just work all the way through the frame, planting plants kind of next to each other. And some people say, well, what plant do you put next to which plant? And I say, well, don't give it a whole lot of thought. If you don't like when you're finished what it looks like, you can kind of redo everything. But you can see how this is starting to fill, and I'm working here from the corner outward. And we just keep placing the cuttings. So once this is filled up with cuttings, we leave this lying flat until the plants grow roots. Once they grow the roots, they actually need water, so then we water it because they have roots. They take the water up and the plants begin to grow, and we give them about 6 to 12 weeks to actually grow the roots down all the way into the soil. And when you tug on a plant, if you actually take the plant gently and pull, in this case it doesn't have roots, so it's loose. But when it gets roots, you tug on the plant a little bit and it's not going to want to come out. And once those roots are fully developed, you're going to have a planter that looks like this. And you can see when I tug on this plant, boy, that's really set into the soil there. Those are all in really good. So once that's done, you can take it off of the table or floor or wherever you've been growing it, and you can hang it up. And then you have a finished living picture or living mural. This is vertical gardening with succulents in a redwood planter box. We have another form of vertical gardening, and in this case we don't use any succulent mix. We just use sphagnum moss. This has a wire frame on the back. There's nylon netting. It's filled with sphagnum moss, and that's tied to the wire frame. And we actually use a nail to make holes big enough to stick the stems of the succulents into this. And so like the vertical gardening with the planter box, we fill this up with cuttings, we leave it lying flat until they root into it, and then when they're growing in, this is what it looks like. We can hang it up, or you can use it as a centerpiece. You have lots of options, but you have a beautiful succulent wreath. And this is another product that we sell, cutting kits, the frames, the finished product, and these are very easy to ship all over the country. Aeonium tabuliform is growing in this tray. This is a 50 pocket cell pack tray, and so we grow these to larger, and then once they fill the tray, which they're about that size now, they get moved into about a 6-inch size pot. And if you come over here, I'll show you what a larger Aeonium tabuliform looks like.